Thank you for tuning in to the CCN Network, for what we bring to your table is factual to consume. Today on our segment, we're going to be talking about how video games have a positive or negative impressions on the youth. Before we start, we want to introduce you to an article which one of our writers have perfectly summarized. The article is called Video Gaming and Children's Psychosocial Well-Being, a Longitudinal Study. Studies for children and teenagers have been conducted to prove that playing video games does in fact affect their minds. Whether positive or negative, there are several types of video games with different content that have been tested on to prove if video games affect their minds. Games were divided into groups: cooperative, competitive, and violent video games, which were all tested. The prediction that competitive and violent video games would decrease social behavior. In this study, data was collected on many children based on a European study approved by the Behavioral Science Institution Ethical Review Board under Radboud University. On the effect of video games on children, a total number of 184 children were studied. Their ages range from 8 to 12 years old. The study consisted of 90 boys and 94 girls. Researchers investigated children who played these types of games did not seem to become more positive in their psychosocial behavior. Children who played video games that would often describe as violent were studied more closely and yielded conclusive evidence that playing video games does seem to affect the mind. But ultimately, all depends on the age, gender, and the amount of time they played, and the type of content in which they desire to experience. But you shouldn't take our word for it. We should ask the people. So let's move on to our first interview.
This is James from Walmart. James, do you think that video games make children violent?
No.
And why?
Why? Well, there could be a lot of things that could happen to make a child violent, and I really don't think video games are one of them. And I know that there's been multiple studies about it, so no, not really.
What other factors do you think?
The home could contribute to it, so violent homes can produce violent children. Neglected children can be violent because they act out. But video games inherently, I don't think make kids violent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. We're going to be continuing with the first article as one of the writers want to add an addition to the summary. Some video games, quote, connect to the internet, allowing children and teenagers to play and have conversations with adults and unknown players, end quote. It is fundamental to be aware and conscious of the possible dangers and to be cautious as well. Some games contain negative aspects such as violence against human beings and animals. The effect of video games on children's psychosocial development is still a relative topic. This study adds to debate over the positive and negative impacts on gaming. Long-term research findings could offer insight on links between various game types, but we should ask someone who's very familiar in the youth. Let's go on to our second interview. Hi, thank you for allowing me to interview you pertaining to video games. Can I please start with your name and your occupation?
Hi, my name is Ulani. I am currently a first grade teacher. I've been teaching for the past 7 years.
Do you believe that playing video games have a positive or negative effects on children or teenagers?
It has both a positive and a negative impact. Negatively, it depends on the game that the child is playing. If the child is playing a game that depicts violence and nudity and profanity, things of that nature, it would definitely have a negative impact. It can leave a positive impression in the sense of community. A lot of students in today's society do not have that sense of community. So that is one positive aspect of it. Another positive aspect of it, it allows decision making, which leads to self-awareness, which leads to leadership skills, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, you have your pros and your cons. It just depends on the individual.
Thank you so much for this interview. I know having it at a gas station is not top 10, but again, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Welcome back. We have another host that want to add their opinion on this particular matter. Let's take a listen.
My name is Jalen Thomas, and today I will be talking about, does playing violent video games have an effect on our kids' mindset? Playing violent video games does and does not have an effect on our kids' mindset. Studies have shown that when kids play violent video games, it does have a negative influence, but also has positive notes when playing these games. It can strengthen the ranges in cognitive skills, health, and social skills, like memorization, perception, spatial navigation, communication, and reasoning, helping our kids develop problem-solving skills and creativity, and expanding their mindset to more of a 3D dimension on an academic course level. With the power of spatial skills in the long run, it can help them in the education and career development level. With these skills and enhancements in our technology, kids are finding more ways of achieving things in science, technology, and engineering and mathematics, giving us the power to advance in the future and giving our kids more and better jobs for lifetime.
As much fun as I'm having, it's coming to an end. But one thing I do want to recap on the last interview, anonymity. It is such a great thing that he highlighted that how we act online can vary different on how we act in real person. And I think that's such a shocking and real statement that we need to hear today. Hi, thank you for allowing me to ask you questions pertaining to video games or games in general. Before we start, can I have your name and your occupation?
My name's Joel Kilmer. I own Thunderdome Gaming.
Do you believe children/teenagers playing video games or games in general leaves positive or negative impressions on them?
Well, I have two opinions. Video games are not my favorite. I believe there's so much to be said about anonymity. People go online, they play things, we play aggressive games, and they're not watched over as much by parents and adults as possibly they should be. So there can be some negative results from that. When it comes to board games, card games, I'm 100% behind that because that brings people together. They're sitting across from each other, they're talking, they're having fun, they're interacting. Society has turned into such a place where we use so much on the internet and so much in such a way that if I'm playing a game and I'm Sniper 400, I can mouth off or foul mouth you, but I have an anonymity because you don't know who I am. So I will say and do things that I wouldn't normally do if I was sitting in front of people. Board games, card games, it brings people together. They get to plan it a little, if you're going to play that, you got to plan for it. You got to be able to come in and bring your stuff, get it done. Most nights that we have games here, the players talk about their day before they actually play. So it becomes a personal thing. So playing games is getting to be a lost thing. But board games and card games that bring people together are definitely a positive for the community and for education.
Well, again, thank you so much for letting me interviewing you. Again, this is greatly appreciated.
No problem.
So let's close with this. The relationship between violent video games and adolescent aggression has become a hot issue in the psychological research. General Aggression Model, GAM, suggests that the exposure to video games directly leads to an increase in aggression. Other research has proposed alternative points of view, such as publication bias or file drawers effect. A meta-analysis by Ferguson, 2007, found that after publication bias adjustment, the related study cannot support the hypothesis that video games are highly correlated with aggression. As this segment coming to an end, we do want to leave you with this. The belief about aggression is not influenced by factors such as gender, prior aggression, and parental monitoring. Analysis of the interaction between family conflict and media violence to adolescent aggression showed that teenagers living in a higher conflict home showed more aggressive behavior. Thank you so much for tuning in to our segment. We are greatly appreciative to each and everyone that's watching.